Something felt off in our new home. Sophie's nightmares weren't just dreams. I found Nathan's secret site. He was selling our lives. I never thought I'd find a place like this in Asheville, North Carolina. My daughter, Sophie, and I had been scraping by, moving from one cramped motel to another after her dad left us high and dry. I'm Emily Harris, 32, a single mom working long shifts at a bakery downtown. Finding a decent home felt like chasing a dream. So when I saw Nathan Brooks listing for a cozy house at just $800 a month, I braced myself for a catch. Nobody rents a place that nice, in a safe neighborhood with kids riding bikes outside, for that kind of money. I was skeptical, but desperate. Sophie deserved a real bed, not a pull-out couch at a friend's place. So I called Nathan. His voice was warm, calm, almost too kind. When we met, he opened the door with a wide smile, shaking my hand like we'd known each other forever. Relief hit me hard. His house was perfect. Hardwood floors, a big backyard for Sophie, even a treehouse. Nathan, a librarian in his 40s, seemed genuine. He listened as I explained our situation, nodding like he cared. "I'm not in this for the money, Emily," he said. "I just like helping people start over." I wanted to believe him. God, I needed to. Sophie and I moved in the next week. Nathan helped carry our boxes, chatting with Sophie about her favorite books. He even promised to grab some at the library where he volunteered. It wasn't creepy, just thoughtful. For the first time in months, I exhaled. Sophie loved her new room, the way sunlight spilled through the window. She'd run outside to play, giggling like the kid she used to be. At night, I'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling like we'd finally caught a break. The house was quiet, safe. Nathan kept to himself but always checked in, asking if we needed anything. He'd leave popsicles in the freezer for Sophie, her favorite kind. It was small gestures like that made me trust him, maybe too much. Looking back, I should have questioned why the rent was so low, why a guy like Nathan with no family wanted tenants like us. But I was tired, worn down from years of struggling. I ignored the tiny voice in my head whispering that something felt off. I just wanted a home for my daughter, a place where we could be happy again. How could I have known what Nathan was really doing? How could I have missed the truth staring me in the face? The first few weeks in Nathan's house felt like a dream. Sophie was thriving, running around the backyard, her laughter echoing through the open windows. I'd watch her from the kitchen, washing dishes, feeling like I'd finally done something right. But then, little things started to creep in, like shadows moving just out of sight. At first, I chalked it up to stress. Working long hours at the bakery, juggling bills, being a single mom, it messes with your head. You start seeing things that aren't there, or so I told myself. It started with my dresser. I'd come home from a shift, exhausted, and find my clothes slightly out of place. A sweater folded wrong, socks unpaired. I'd just done laundry, so maybe I'd been sloppy. But it kept happening. One night, I found my journal open on my bed, flipped to a page I hadn't touched in weeks, where I'd written about Sophie's dad leaving us. My stomach twisted. Had Sophie been reading it? She was only 8, curious, but she'd never touched my journal before. I asked her casually, over dinner, "Sweetie, you been looking through my stuff?" She shook her head, eyes wide, focused on her macaroni. I believed her. Then Sophie started acting strange. She'd wake up at night, padding into my room, climbing into bed. "There's a red light in my ceiling, Mom," she whispered one night, her voice small. "It blinks. It's creepy." I tucked her close, heart pounding, and promised to check. The next morning, I stood on a chair in her room, squinting at the ceiling. Nothing. No light, no hole, just smooth plaster. Maybe it was a nightmare, I thought. We'd been through so much motels, uncertainty. Kids imagine things, right? But Nathan's behavior started gnawing at me. He was still kind, still brought Sophie popsicles, but his comments got personal. One evening, as we ate pizza in the kitchen, he said, "Sophie's really good at drawing, huh? Bet she misses those art classes you couldn't afford last year." I froze, fork halfway to my mouth. I'd never told him about Sophie's art classes. That was a private conversation I'd had with her, late at night, when she'd cried about missing her old school. "How'd you know about that?" I asked, keeping my voice light. Nathan laughed, waving it off. "Oh, must have heard you two talking. These walls are thin." They weren't. The house was solid, old, built to last. My skin prickled. Then the electric bill came. It was $200, double what I'd expected. I showed it to Nathan, confused. "Old wiring," he said smoothly, not meeting my eyes. "Happens sometimes. I'll get it checked." His voice was too polished, like he'd practiced the line. That night, lying in bed, I heard a faint hum, like a distant insect, coming from the walls. I pressed my ear to the plaster, but it stopped. Silence. I told myself it was the house settling. Old places creak, hum, live their own lives. But the hum came back the next night, and the next. When I asked Nathan, he shrugged. "Probably the AC unit. I'll look into it." He didn't. Sophie's nightmares got worse. She'd wake up crying, saying the red light was watching her. I checked her room again, flashlight in hand, heart racing. Nothing. But her fear was real, her small body trembling as she clung to me. I started sleeping with her door open, my own anxiety spiking. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling eyes on me. Not realize, just a weight. Like someone was there, just beyond the shadows. I started scrolling Reddit late at night, reading about hidden cameras and rentals, Airbnbs, places like this. It seemed crazy. Nathan was so normal, so helpful, but the thought wouldn't leave me. What if Sophie was right? What if that red light wasn't a dream? I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Sophie's nightmares about the red light, the misplaced clothes, Nathan's too perfect answers, they piled up like bricks in my chest. I tried to focus on work, kneading dough at the bakery, but my mind kept drifting back to that hum in the walls. Then, one afternoon, Sarah, my coworker, pulled me aside during a slow shift. Her face was pale, eyes darting nervously. "Emily, you're gonna think I'm nuts," she whispered, leaning close over the counter. "But I saw something online last night, a live stream. There was a woman who looked just like you. you. My heart stopped. I forced a laugh, but it came out wrong, shaky. What, like my doppelganger? Sarah didn't smile. It was weird, okay? Some shady site, full of live feeds from random houses. I clicked one and it was a bedroom. Your bedroom. I swear I saw Sophie's stuffed elephant on the bed. My stomach churned, bile rising in my throat. I gripped the counter to steady myself. You're sure? I asked, voice barely above a whisper. Sarah nodded, biting her lip. I closed it fast. It felt wrong. I didn't want to freak you out unless I was sure. That night, after Sophie was asleep, I sat on my bed, phone in hand, heart pounding like a drum. Nathan was out, volunteering at the library, his usual routine. The house was too quiet, the kind of quiet that screams. I opened my browser, hands trembling, and searched for live stream sites. Most were dead ends gaming platforms, pet cams. But after an hour, I found it. A dark-themed site, no name, just a string of numbers and letters. Thumbnails of rooms glowed on the screen, each labeled vaguely. Guest room, living area, kids space. My blood ran cold when I saw one marked Asheville single mom. I clicked it. The screen loaded, and there it was, our bedroom. Sophie's stuffed elephant sat on her pillow, my sweater draped over a chair. It was live, real time, the clock on my nightstand ticking in sync with the one beside me. I felt like I was falling, the room spinning. I clicked another thumbnail. Bathroom. My breath caught. It showed me from that morning, brushing my teeth, oblivious. Another, Sophie's corner. My daughter, asleep, her small chest rising and falling, a faint red glow in the ceiling corner, the same red light she'd been crying about. Below the feeds were chat windows, filled with vile comments. She's hotter when she's tired, one said. Kid's cute. Zoom in next time. Another. My hands shook so hard I nearly dropped my phone. There were subscription tiers, $39, $99 for basic access, more for exclusive content. Nathan's username, Carolina Host, was at the top, marked as the stream's owner. His profile picture was that same warm smile he'd greeted us with, now twisted into something sinister. I wanted to scream, to rip the walls apart, but I couldn't. Sophie was sleeping 10 feet away. I clicked through the site, each page worse than the last. There were archives, months of footage, not just of us, but of others. Women, families, all unaware, their lives laid bare for strangers. The Asheville single mom section had hundreds of viewers, some paying for special requests. My skin crawled imagining what that meant. I took screenshots, my fingers clumsy, saving every detail, usernames, timestamps, payment options. I felt violated, exposed, like 1,000 eyes were boring into me right then. That hum in the walls, it wasn't wiring. It was cameras, watching, recording, feeding Nathan's sick empire. I lay awake all night, staring at the ceiling, now seeing the tiny red light in the smoke detector. It blinked every few seconds, mocking me. Sophie's words echoed in my head. It's creepy, Mom. She'd known. My 8-year-old had sensed what I'd ignored. I wanted to grab her and run, but where? We had no money, no family nearby, and Nathan, he'd know if I bolted. He'd been watching us for months, probably knew my every move. I couldn't let him see my fear. Not yet. By morning, my eyes burned from lack of sleep, but I forced myself to act normal. I made pancakes, smiled as Sophie chattered about school. Nathan came downstairs, all charm, asking if we'd slept well. I nodded, my throat tight, forcing out a fine thanks. His eyes lingered on me, searching, like he could smell my panic. I wondered if he'd checked the stream, seen me frozen in bed, staring at that damned red light. I needed a plan, fast, before he realized I knew. Before whatever he was planning next happened to us. I couldn't confront Nathan. Not yet. Screaming, running, smashing those cameras, it would feel good, but it'd tip him off. He'd destroy evidence, disappear, and we'd be back to square one. Maybe worse. No, I had to be smarter than him. I had to play his game, pretend I was still clueless, while building a case to bury him. Sophie's safety depended on it. That morning, I kissed her forehead, sent her to school, and smiled at Nathan like nothing was wrong. Inside, I was screaming. First, I needed more proof. Screenshots from the website were a start, but I needed physical evidence, cameras, wires, something the police couldn't ignore. My phone was old, barely able to run apps, so I borrowed Sarah's during a break at the bakery. I need to check something, I said, keeping it vague. She didn't ask questions, just handed it over, her eyes full of worry. I downloaded a camera detection app, one that could spot hidden lenses by their reflections. It wasn't perfect, but it was all I had. I also searched for the site again, using a private browser. The Asheville single mom feed was still live, viewers commenting in real time. She's at work now, boring, one wrote. My blood boiled. They knew my schedule. Back home, I waited for Nathan to leave for his library shift. The second his car pulled out, I grabbed my phone and started scanning. The app lit up in our bedroom, pinpointing the smoke detector. I stood on a chair, heart racing, and found it a tiny lens, barely visible, with that cursed red light blinking in the dark. I snapped photos, careful not to touch it. Next, the bathroom. The app buzzed near the air vent above the shower. I climbed onto the sink, my hands shaking, and saw another lens, angled to catch everything. Sophie's bath time, my mornings, all streamed to strangers. I felt sick but kept going. In Sophie's corner, her bedside lamp had a faint glow. Another camera. I documented it all, whispering to myself, stay calm, Emily, for her. Nathan came home early that day. I was in the hallway checking a light fixture when I heard his car. I shoved my phone in my pocket, grabbed a broom, and pretended to sweep. Spring cleaning? He asked, his smile too tight. Just tidying up, I said, forcing a laugh. His eyes lingered like he was searching for cracks in my act. I couldn't tell if he suspected anything, but I felt his gaze like a weight. That night, I made a game with Sophie. Let's be spies, I told her, keeping my voice playful. We change clothes in the closet where no one can see. Super secret mission. She giggled, thinking it was fun. I hated lying, but I couldn't tell her the truth. Not yet. I started covering cameras subtly. A scarf over the bathroom vent to dry, a stack of books blocking the bedroom smoke detector. For decor, Nathan noticed. He'd move things back when I wasn't looking, claiming he was organizing. I switched tactics, painting clear nail polish over the lenses at night. It blurred the feed without being obvious. I also played music constantly, saying it helped Sophie focus on homework. Really, I hoped it drowned out our conversations. Nathan complained after a few days. That music's giving me headaches, he said, rubbing his temples. Can you turn it down? I apologized, dialed it back just enough to keep him off my back. I needed more than cameras. I needed Nathan on record, linked to the site. One night, when he left his laptop open in the kitchen, I took a chance. My hands shook as I opened his browser. The site was still logged in. Carolina host managing subscriptions, uploading footage. I recorded the screen with my phone, capturing payment records, user comments, even a private chat where he promised special content soon. My stomach twisted at what that might mean. I closed everything, wiped my fingerprints, and prayed he wouldn't notice. The next day, I called a women's shelter from the bakery's break room. We're full, the worker said. 2-week wait list. File a police report. It'll help. I hung up, frustrated. My last run-in with cops when Sophie's dad was stalking us taught me they'd need hard proof. I couldn't risk them dismissing me as paranoid. I set aside $40 from my tips for a prepaid phone, skipping groceries to afford it. That night, I transferred my screenshots to a new email, unlinked to me, and hid the phone in my sock drawer. Nathan's behavior grew stranger. He'd hover, showing up when I was alone, asking about my day with that fake warmth. Once he mentioned Sophie's school play, something I'd only discussed with her in her room. Must have overheard, he said when I stared. The walls weren't that thin. I started checking my phone for tracking apps, deleting anything suspicious. Then, a text from Nathan. Upgraded the Wi-Fi security. Let me know if you have issues. My heart sank. Was he monitoring my internet? I deleted my browser history, stopped searching on my phone. The worst came when I found a camera in the bathroom vent, angled at the tub, Sophie's tub. I nearly vomited, imagining him watching her, selling her to those monsters online. I couldn't remove it, he'd know. Instead, I taught Sophie to change under a towel, calling it spy training. She laughed, oblivious. I cried in the shower, water masking my sobs. I had to end this, but I needed one final piece of evidence, something undeniable. I started planning to catch Nathan in the act, on video, managing his sick empire. It meant getting closer to him, playing nice, even as every word I said to him felt like swallowing glass. I had no choice. For Sophie, I'd do anything. I had enough evidence to bury Nathan, but I couldn't stop yet. Every day felt like walking a tightrope. One wrong move, and he'd know I was onto him. I sent my screenshots and recordings to a detective. Sarah connected me with Detective Laura Evans, a no-nonsense woman who took one look at my photos and said, "This is big, Emily. We're building a case, but we need 24 hours for a warrant." I nodded, my throat tight, whispering, "Please hurry." I was locked in the bathroom, shower running to muffle my voice, praying Nathan wasn't listening. Keeping up the act was torture. Nathan's smiles grew sharper, his eyes always searching mine for cracks. That evening, he suggested dinner out, to celebrate our little family. The word family made my skin crawl, but I saw an opportunity. A public place meant safety, a chance to stall until the police moved. "Sounds great," I said, forcing a smile, texting Detective Evans the restaurant's address as we drove. Sophie sat in the back seat, humming, oblivious to the storm brewing. I kept my hand on her knee, grounding myself. At the diner, Nathan's phone buzzed constantly. He'd glance at it, scowl, then shove it in his pocket. "Work trouble?" I asked, playing dumb, stirring my coffee. "Just tech issues," he muttered, his voice tight. His fingers tapped the table, restless. I wondered if the police were already hitting his website, freezing his accounts. I stretched dinner as long as I could, ordering Sophie a giant milkshake, letting her ramble about school. Nathan's mood darkened with every buzz of his phone, his charm crumbling. I kept my face neutral, heart pounding, counting the minutes. When we pulled into the driveway, I saw them 2 unmarked police cars across the street, their lights off but unmistakable. Nathan froze, his hands gripping the wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. "Stay here," he snapped, his voice no longer warm, just cold steel. "What's wrong?" I asked, unbuckling Sophie's seatbelt, keeping my tone light. "Are those cop cars?" Before he could answer, Detective Evans tapped his window, badge gleaming under the streetlight. "Nathan Brooks, step out of the vehicle, please." His face twisted panic, rage, a predator cornered. He slammed the car into reverse, but I was faster. I yanked the keys from the ignition, my hands steady despite the adrenaline flooding me. "Sophie, out now," I said firmly, pulling her door open. Nathan lunged for the keys, his fingers brushing my arm, but I was already moving, Sophie in tow. We stumbled onto the lawn as he cursed, his fake kindness gone, replaced by raw fury. He bolted from the car, sprinting toward the backyard. 2 officers took off after him, their boots pounding the gravel. Detective Evans stayed with us, her hand on my shoulder. "You okay?" she asked, her voice calm but urgent. I nodded, clutching Sophie, who buried her face in my side. "The red light man," she whispered, trembling. I kissed her hair, whispering, "He's gone, baby." From the backyard, shouts echoed. I saw flashlights, then Nathan, handcuffed, being dragged back, his eyes locked on mine, burning with hate. "You set me up," he hissed as they shoved him past us. "I gave you a home." I turned Sophie away, covering her ears, but she'd heard. Her small hand squeezed mine. The police swarmed the house, pulling cameras from vents, lamps, even a fake outlet I'd missed. Detective Evans took our statement on the porch, her voice low. "We've got over 25 cameras so far," she said. "His site had 600 subscribers. You stopped a monster, Emily." My legs shook. 600 people watching us, paying for it. I hugged Sophie tighter, her warmth keeping me grounded. Nathan's glare as they loaded him into the cruiser felt like a knife, but I stared back, refusing to flinch. flinch. He didn't own us anymore. The police let us stay in a hotel that night, paid for by the department. Sophie slept curled against me, her stuffed elephant clutched tight. I didn't sleep. Every creak made me jump, expecting to see a red light blinking in the dark. The next day, we gave our statements again. Detective Evans sat across from me, her eyes kind but tired. Nathan's operation was massive, she said. We've identified 4 other victims, previous tenants. Your evidence cracked this wide open. I nodded, numb, trying not to think about the 600 strangers who'd watched us live our lives. We couldn't go back to Nathan's house. It was a crime scene now. Sarah and the bakery crew surprised me at work. My manager handed me an envelope, her voice soft. We took up a collection, Emily. $750 for you and Sophie. I opened it, hands trembling, and found cash, enough for a deposit on a new place. Tears spilled over before I could stop them. Thank you, I choked out. Sarah hugged me, whispering, I should have told you sooner about that website. I'm sorry. I shook my head. She'd helped enough. A week later, Sophie and I moved into a small apartment with Sarah and her son, Ethan. The kids hit it off like siblings, their laughter filling the space. It felt like a home, a real one, but the fear lingered. I'd wake at 2 a.m., heart racing, checking corners for cameras. Once, I tore apart a smoke detector, convinced it was watching. Nothing. Sarah caught me one night, flashlight in hand, and just hugged me. It fades, she promised. She was right, but it took time. I met the other victims for coffee, a grim support group. Lisa, a single mom like me, had lived in Nathan's house 2 years ago. I always felt uneasy, she said, stirring her latte. Never knew why. We shared stories, piecing together Nathan's pattern: cheap rent, vulnerable tenants, hidden cameras. He'd been doing this for years. The prosecutor called a month later. Nathan took a plea. 15 years, no parole, registered as a sex offender. Most footage would be destroyed, but she warned, some subscribers might have saved copies. The thought made my stomach lurch, but I pushed it down. I couldn't change that. I could only move forward. 6 months later, Sophie was sleeping through the night again, her closet light always on. I still checked for cameras, but the panic was softer, less sharp. On the 1-year mark of that awful night, I thought about doing something to commemorate it, a quiet moment to acknowledge our survival. But when I mentioned it to Sophie, she just rolled her eyes. Mom, that was forever ago, she said, tugging my arm. Can we get ice cream with Sarah and Ethan instead? I laughed, grabbing my keys. She was right. We didn't need to dwell on Nathan. The best revenge was living like he'd never existed. We walked to the ice cream shop, Sophie's hand in mine, her chatter filling the air. Love you, Mom, she said softly, squeezing my fingers. Love you too, kiddo, I replied, my heart full. No red lights, no cameras, just us, free, building a life on our terms in Asheville's warm evening glow.